What is going on, everybody? This is Yes, I Read That, and today I'm doing the Bookish Beginnings tag. Definitely check out the original by Reads and Daydreams, because I thought this was a really good idea and I wanted to talk a bit about my history in books, when I started reading and what I read so far. So the first question is, tell us what you loved to read as a child. And obviously for me, my childhood books were German books, and there are some pretty interesting German books. Actually, I plan to make a whole video on German books for kids because they're pretty screwed up, and I have two pretty good examples here. The first one is Der Struwwelpeter, which is basically a showcase, like this is a bad kid and some stuff you shouldn't do, and well, it's pretty screwed up. I don't know. And the other one is Max und Moritz, which is a story about two kids. These two guys here, they do some pretty bad stuff to their neighbors and they always play tricks on them. And in the end, they have a lesson coming. So it's pretty much the same. It's like what you shouldn't do and what can happen if you still do it. It's pretty screwed up as well in the end. And the interesting thing about this book is that it's completely in rhyme form. Like the whole thing is like a poem. So it's pretty cool, but it's still screwed up. But there are some other cool books like this one. It's what's it called? Das Schlaraffenland, which is basically like Schlaraffenland is like the fantasy land where everything is awesome, and basically it's like with illustrations, and you can shake the money from the trees in this promised land, and everything, food is everywhere and all of that good stuff. So it's not all bad, there's also some pretty funny books. But in Germany it's pretty customary that the parents read some stories to the kids, and usually you have some books with images that the kids can look at, and at the meantime the parent tells them the story that's going on. And that's pretty much what's happening in Max and Moritz. So you have huge pictures and the parents will tell you what's going on because they can read the text. And then as soon as you start to be able to read yourself, you start reading other books. And there are some really good German authors like Michael Ende. I think a lot of people will know Michael Ende from The Neverending Story or Momo maybe. I couldn't find any other book than this. It's Der Wunschpunsch. I'm not sure. Actually, Der Satan, Archäologie, Genial, Alko, Höllische Wunschpunsch. It's a kid's book, obviously. This is like a joke name, and I'm not sure if it's translated or what the translated name would be of this joke. But yeah, he writes really good books for kids. Another one is Erich Kästner. He wrote a book like this, which basically translates to The Flying Classroom, and I think it's literally about a school class. It's a pretty good book for kids. So yeah, I read those books, obviously The Neverending Story and Momo, and there are really good German books for kids. So honestly, I can't even remember reading the first book I read. I think my mom used to tell me, because when I read my first book I was so slow because I had to read every single character, and I was super slow. And so when I finished reading, I put a bookmark and I put it in like this. Wait a second. I put it in like this so I would know exactly what line I was at. I couldn't start reading from the start of the page. That would take forever. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that was my beginnings. Another author that I really loved was Cornelia Funke. I talked about her a bit before. The Inkheart books are really good and I want to reread them someday. Yeah, that's pretty much all about kids books for now, because you can talk about this forever, and I think I'm going to talk about it in a different video because I think that's super interesting and I kind of want to compare it to American books. I don't know, I'm just curious. The next question is, what was the first adult fiction book I tried to read, or in this case had to read? And it was Die Nibelungen by Auguste Lechner, which is a German epic fantasy book basically we had to read in school, and it's honestly, I still remember that everybody in class thought it was super weird because it uses a lot of very old school German words, and you can tell from the names that it's supposed to be very old school. So it's like it's about Siegfried and Kriemhild and Brunhild and Gunther, and it's just for a class full of teenagers that's kind of weird to read. Yeah, so I still remember that. I thought it was super weird. I don't know. I never read it again. But yeah, that was the first book that I had or tried to read. I didn't really like it. Then the next question is, what was the classic book you read not because of school? And I think that was Die Welle or The Wave in English. I'm not sure if it's translated, but I would guess it is because it's pretty famous in Germany. And it's about a school class that has a... how do I describe this? It's like a revolution inside the class, and everything is pretty much like whole Nazi Germany. So they're forming like this Nazi group, and everybody who's not part of the group is an outcast. And it's pretty much an analogy to the Nazi times and how you can, how group pressure really can affect a group. And, it's like, I think it's pretty famous in Germany because of the whole Nazi analogy, and it's supposed to teach kids that they're not supposed to go with the group all the time. They're supposed to think for themselves, and I think it's really good, and I think it's a really good book. I thought back then that it's good, so yeah. Next question is, tell us about the book that made you realize your favorite genre or writing style. And obviously I love fantasy books. Fantasy, like a lot of German kids books, are fantasy books, and I can't really say which book it was that I fell in love with the genre, but I think Harry Potter was super important because the Harry Potter books are famous all over the world. Obviously they're translated to German, and back then everybody used to read them, and obviously everybody was talking about them. It's one of those books that are just very important because they really, they really cemented my love of fantasy. So yeah, I think it's Harry Potter and all of the other German children books because they're all fantasy. Oh, and another book that really made me love fantasy was Lord of the Rings, because I actually read the Lord of the Rings books when I was really young. My parents forced me to read them before I watched the movies, so I had to at first, and then after after the first book I really loved them, so it wasn't bad. But that really, I always liked that book, even as a kid. So yeah, that book definitely made me love fantasy as well. And the next question is, what was the first book with a literary prize that you read? And it's this. I actually won a prize for European Youth. I don't know. Yeah. Apparently it's good. I didn't really like it, but yeah. What was the first piece of translated fiction that you read? I think it was Harry Potter. I mean, that's obviously it has been translated from English, and that's like one of the first books I remember reading, so yeah. And the last question is, tell us why you started BookTube and how it was to record your first video. So BookTube, it was super spontaneous actually. I thought about this, like I discovered BookTube and then I watched a few videos, and suddenly I thought like, hey, maybe I could make my own channel. And I thought about it a bit. I thought, hey, that's actually super beneficial. Like, I will read more. I will get a lot more discussion about the books. I can practice my English. I can practice like talking or presenting a bit in front of a camera, or, And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I just, I think like a few days later, I just sat down, recorded my first video just to get it out there, just so I had to continue. And yeah, from then on I did. And the first video was bad. I mean, I didn't feel bad recording it, but I didn't edit it at all. And I think it's not that interesting to watch, honestly. But, that's my first video. Yeah. And that already concludes the Bookish Beginnings tag. As I said, I think I will talk a lot more about German books for kids because they're pretty interesting, to call it that. And I think I'm gonna do that next week. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and maybe sub to this channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye!